the answer to that would be no. One fish isn't going to represent an entire population, but what they were studying was the idea that this cuttlefish is only engaged in that prey item as long as it's doing or what? It's moving or alive. That's right. Okay, so like I said, I would find it hard to believe that that would be the case, but I'm not a zoologist by any means. But it could be a correlation between that, and if you've seen Finding Nemo, when they go down into the abyss, and I don't know what species of fish that is, whether that's a coelacanth or whatever, that has a bio that would probably be a little type of light bulb that hangs around in front of its mouth and lures fish in, and then once it's in that strike zone, it would probably prey upon that item, to where when these fish are looking at that bright light saying, wow, this is cool, how's that correlated to what you had seen on Friday? When prey items are looking at that cuttlefish, that kind of does what to them, do they think? Stun, yeah. I'm sorry, what was this over here? Yeah, mesmerizes them, I would almost say hypnotizes them. I don't know, that you're all meaning about the same thing, because they're just looking at that, and it's kind of like, gosh, I really don't know what to do. So the reason, that's not the only place that we would see that possibly type of an example. Sometimes I do believe zoologists think that is the case when it comes to zebras, not in their predation, but them being the prey. So when you're looking at these animals, okay, you have all these zebras. Why might that be a type of mesmerizing or stunning or hypnotizing effect as a prey item, not a predator? Because as a predator's looking at all them stripes, what might it do to them? It would confuse, it might confuse them, and that's probably an advantage to them being in a herd in that example and having those different, let's say, I know there's stripes, patterns is what I'm looking for. So I do believe that a lot of there is no, I'm sure it's possible, but I don't think there are two zebras that have the same type of stripes. Same with tigers, not have the same type of stripes, although of course they're predators, not prey items. But again, that's not the only time we would see something like that, perhaps in the animal kingdom. So what happens is, it's not so much, I don't know how the chromatophores work in I think they flex their skin, and it's those little type of colored dots that make the different types of arrangements that's in their skin, and how they flex those muscles that the different types of, whether it's, what was it, blues, reds, and was it orange? And I want to say aren't, but yeah, probably orange. I think that's right. But when you look at a color wheel, isn't it blue, green, and red? Are those your primary colors, or is it yellow? Is yellow's a secondary color then? Yellow's primary, along with, okay, I'm asking because I really don't know, in all honesty. Okay, so just when you, how many of you think you would notice when you look at any type of video wall, whether it's the one that's in our gym, or it's any other, even Jumbotron or whatever, when you look at the microscopic LED lights, you see reds, blues, and I know we said yellow's a primary, but I think it's green that's on there as well. But it's just those three different types of colored dots on there that make the different types of, let's say, color patterns that you see. and also I think what happens is as you getting back to that zebra example, the longer you stare at something like that, I do believe it takes its toll on that predator's retina and makes their eyes tire, if you want to call it that. But I do know one thing. We're going to talk about feeding in these bivalves for a little bit, and we'll get on to those cuttlefish. And I want to say maybe Thursday. We'll look at the clams in the lab. I believe when I had wrote them out, I really wasn't sure whether we had them. I checked this morning, and yes, we do have. I almost said cuttlefish. Yes, we do have some clams. Okay. So as we look at this, this is one class of the phylum what? Mollusca. Because as we move forward, this is the second class, okay? And when we look at these animals, of course, these are the clams, and gastropods are slugs, snails, creatures like that. Okay. Things we want to do is think about this term right here. They're laterally compressed. This laterally compressed, or is that laterally compressed? Do you think this or this? It's kind of like, when was the last time you were to the eye doctor? Isn't that where they got that I wouldn't say machine, but it's up here, and they through the lens, better one, better two. And sometimes probably the best answer to give is possibly no change, because then I think your vision may be improving, but especially as you get older. But so laterally compressed, one or two? Are people saying one because other people are saying two, or are people saying two because they see or hear other people saying one? It's one. It's like this. Yep, they're laterally compressed in this manner where they're laying flat. Okay, and one way to look at that is we've got our running back who's trying to gain some yardage. So is that Riker or Eli or both? Both? Okay. Anyway, so our running back has gone up, and man, he hits the line. He can't go. He's wrapped up, but he sees big old 78 there. There's Alec. If I'm Eli, if I'm gonna lateral it to him, is it this thing about? Is it this, or is it that? Yeah, you would do one of these. That's kind of like a pitch. So that's what we mean by laterally compressed like this on its side. Otherwise, this would be vertically compressed. So, do you want to run the football? Okay. If in a fumble recovery or interception, or did anyone almost catch you? They make contact and you fell over the goal line? think, God dang, am I almost there yet? I can see the goalpost, but it's not getting any closer. Oh, okay, well, yeah. See, all that conditioning that you did back in August and September, you think, oh, this is terrible. Now it's reaping its benefits. Or August or September. But that doesn't answer my question. Was it back in August or September? On the road? It was, yeah, so it was out there. Okay. So, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, if you look, yeah, I think someone just said, if you look outside, you might be a little, might kind of think that. But, okay. So they're laterally compressed. They're laying flat. Okay. So this hinge ligament is doing everything it can to hold itself shut, because inside is the mantle cavity. And in that mantle cavity, it's all their organs of digestion. And we had mentioned before, how many of you, man, I loved oysters. Okay. Perhaps when we crack these things open, you might think, that's what we're eating when it comes to oysters. Some people, yes. Some people, no. But if you find a pearl, we get to keep it here at the school. You think we'll find a pearl? Probably not. Probably not. Dang. But anyway, so inside, again, an open area is a cavity. And we call it the mantle cavity because it's the mantle that holds everything in place. The example we gave was we have what's called an omentum that holds our intestines in place. Should they not be held in place or come out of place, that can be dangerous, especially if your intestines become kinked. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, colic, is that a type of bowel blockage it's in horses, I think, but is it in cattle too? Okay. So, I almost said cholera, but no, it's colic. But my wife made me watch this movie called Marley and Me. How many of you have seen that? So for those of you who had your hands up, you certainly know when you get towards the end of that. Unfortunately, they take Marley to the veterinarian and said for some reason his intestines had popped out of place. And I can't remember if it's in the movie where is he rolling around on his back and they pop out of place. It's been a while since I've seen it. But does that sound familiar, you two? Or can't remember? Okay. But and unfortunately what had happened is I think it's Owen Wilson. I think he finds him underneath a tree, and it's in a rainstorm, so they take him to the vet and said, well, I can try one thing, but chances are what's going to happen is his intestines are going to pop out of place again. And it does in the movie, but it is a movie. But unfortunately, they did have to put the animal to rest. How many of you have seen that done at a veterinarian's office? Or okay, and it's obviously tough for anybody, because obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously. I think we're probably going to have to go through that eventually someday. I mean, your pet or your dog isn't going to live for 20 plus years, but it was tough, probably, right? And I think it makes sense, because I've seen posts like this on Facebook saying, just don't drop your dog off at the veterinarian's office and then leave because you think I can't handle that. Um, the last moments of that, and I think you would agree, what we're saying, that your dog is still looking for you, and yeah, I can understand that. That's tough going for the animal. So, but obviously it's what we hope is and think is painless, but I'm not thinking about the pain. Why I have a smile on my face is I'm trying to think of who the voice was. His name was Charlie, and it was a Disney movie, and I think it was called All Dogs Go to Heaven. Charlie was the name of the dog, so I think that is hopefully a comforting thought for some of you who maybe have to go through that in the near future. So anyway, back to this term right here. Okay? Anatomy and physiology people. What does an adductor muscle do? This or that? Was that Sam? You got it right. Yeah, man, our conversations, we're going 2 for 2, whether it's look to your right. Tough day today? No? The reason I say you're going 2 for 2 is we had this discussion already. So you were right about that. Now you're right about this. Okay? You're on a roll. Okay? So, well, I was just wondering if we're having a tough day. But yes, adductor muscles, okay, will keep that clam shut because, when we say shut, if someone says shut your trap, or, I don't say shut your clam, but, it's kind of like shut your mouth is what they're getting at. But yes, so it's an adductor muscle that pulls and draws the valves together. Did you know that's what that meant, or you just read this and figured that's what it meant, pulls them closer together? Well, that's what that means, pulling them away. So that would be that movement then. But you got it right. Just by chance? Okay. All right. So as we continue, okay, 1, 2, okay. We will get into, I want to do this one, and then this is where we left off. I want to do this slide, then we'll stop there for today, because tomorrow we'll talk about their anatomy of the bivalves that fits into their feeding purposes. So again, what you're looking at, reason it says body and mantle, is again, these animals have a mantle cavity that has all of these different types of structures. Don't worry, I'll come back to this. Has all these gills and internal organs that secretes all this good stuff. So, okay, is everyone maybe didn't have anything to write, huh? Just one thing, okay. So, did anybody watch, we were talking about this a little bit last hour, the Minnesota-Arizona game yesterday? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. Mr. Thielen He's got his moves down, don't he? What is this? And then at the end with Mr. Kurd, it's this. No? It's kind of all lumbering around like this. And see a lineman do that's hilarious. That's all you. They score a touchdown. You get in there and do one of these. But then I don't think the sideline, coaches might not think much of that though. Just celebrating, coach. I'm happy, right? Is that a good answer? It's a good answer, but it might not be the right one. It might not work. Okay, but yeah, so yeah, obviously don't do that. Anyway, we will continue, like I said, with this tomorrow, and then at some point we'll crack those clams open so you can see what you're looking at when you have whether it's smoked oysters or oyster stew.